Hi everyone. My name is Jano Suchal. I am from Slovensko Digital. Is anyone familiar with these keywords except e-government here? Has anyone heard about open data? Open data, hands up, okay. Open APIs? Okay. And my data? Okay, I see you, okay. 2 or 3 guys heard about my data. Has anybody heard about Slovensko Digital here? Okay. So I want to just know how deep I should go in this talk. This is pretty introductory talk, so I want to talk about, obviously, about these keywords, and especially in e-government, because everything is lagging in e-government, and these are not keywords unfamiliar from the e-commerce. So what's happening with these 3 keywords in e-government? But first, a little bit about Slovensko Digital. So 4 years ago, we founded an NGO or a civic organization, Slovensko Digital, and we have like 3 pillars of what we do. We do collaborations with agencies and offices, like the Value for Money organization or office that in Slovak, Útvar hodnoty za peniaze, maybe you are familiar with that one. Then we do a watchdog. So we look at IT projects and studies that are planned in e-government, and we kind of try to look at them and build some red flag system around them and see what we can do to stop these projects if they are not good, and look what can we make better. And then we are something like software house, so we build our own products, but related to government or e-government. So I'm going to mostly talk about collaborations and software house and the building products around e-government services. And if you want to know about the watchdog stuff, please wait until the discussion. So what is common about these 3 keywords? Is anybody familiar with government as a platform here? Has anyone heard that? I see you, okay. Okay, 2 people, okay. Okay, so if you look how government, like the offline government works, it builds roads, it builds hospitals, it manages money, central banks, and so on. So we can all use them. But if you look at e-government or e-government in the past, it's quite different. We have like this big IT project, Slovensko SK, and so on, and they are not very open to e-commerce, so you can't build around them. So the main theme here is how we can build an open government, so anybody can build services on the services or on the data we. Okay, sorry. Yes, this is Slovak e-government. Okay, thank you. This was not staged. This was not staged or scripted. So, okay, so we want to build e-government as a platform. And what do we need for the platform to start working? So we need data. So we need to open data. If you look how that looks today, this is the main portal. You can click on that, data.gov.sk. There is some data. Mostly the interesting data is not here. You can look it elsewhere. Like I'm pretty sure you never heard about this website, but the data there, it has open data part, is something that's powering like major data crawling services here in Slovakia. And as you will see later, you have actually used this data. This is the data from the financial statements for all companies in Slovakia. So this is pretty interesting. So we want the government to open as much data as possible, and we want the valuable data, not like the data about apples and oranges or something like that. And that's a true story. When this portal was firstly made, it was empty, because the project was not about making the data available, but just making the platform. It cost about a couple of million euros, this website without any data. So this is another site that contains data. And let's look at what we can do with open data. So this is a commercial section. This is our website, but it's not so commercial because most of this stuff we do non-profit. So this is our website, ecosystem Slovensko Digital. And you can look at the data we have crawled here and what we have built around this data. So the first thing we built, we scraped the register of all corporate bodies, like companies and individuals and so on. And you just start typing the name of the company or the person, and you will get all the data we have. And this looks simple, and it is useful for all kinds of invoicing services. So our customers or clients are using this for various forms in invoicing software. So you just type a couple of letters, and then you get the what ID, the name of the company, the address of the company, the ID of the company, and so on. And this is not very easy to make because this data is available from about. You have to combine about 3 or 4 registries to make this simple one, and you can get this for free. This is a better example. This is the most famous Slovak website about financial data in Slovakia. It's called Finstat, and they actually get the data, some of the data from us, and they combine like tens of sources of data. And this is how it looks. This is the company Globaltel, a major supplier in Slovakia for big IT projects. So you can see how the company is doing historically, if they are in the red or the black numbers, and so on and so on. You can watch the company if anything changes, and so on. And then you have like the global companies. This is called Climate.com. It was bought by Monsanto, and it's a platform or an app if you have a farm and you want to calculate the yield from the ground for next season or so. This uses some kind of machinery to predict how the yield is going to be. And they combine weather forecasts and some kind of cadastre data to build this. And it was sold for $1 billion. So nice. Okay, and of course, if you look at Google Maps, the cities like Bratislava and Vienna and London, they are providing data about how the traffic has their itinerary and the tracks of the buses and so on. So Google actually takes this data and pulls that into their applications. So, okay, that's open data. Now let's get to something that's more new, but it's very common in e-commerce. Open APIs. So the difference between data and APIs is that the data is public and read-only. APIs are not so public. You can get your own data, or after authentication, some other data. From another person maybe, and they could be also write operations, so not only reads. So what we do in Slovensko Digital, we try to open these APIs, so we go to the offices, the government offices, and the government office to make some data available. We talk to companies which APIs and data they want, then we try to somehow make them available. And what we did is we made a project, Slovensko SK API, that is an API for Slovensko SK. Paradoxically, the project that's mostly shamed in media's Slovensko SK is something that was looking way ahead in the future. And actually, Slovensko SK has APIs, but they're so hard to integrate. So we built a component, an open source component. You can look at GitHub at Slovensko Digital, Slovensko SK API, and download that. You have all the documentation there. There is a nice Swagger API documentation. It's a REST API, so you just run this component, and you can do some stuff with Slovensko SK. Like if you want to sign with your EID for your product and have like guaranteed data about the person that's signing in, that's read from the government registries, this is it. You can use it. Or you can send some messages, like the official messages, using this component, and you don't have to go to the official website. So you can do this, and you can use this today. Okay. So let's look at an example how this works. Again, commercial section. That's a joke, actually, because mostly this is free. We built a simple app that redirects all the messages from your official email at Slovensko SK to your Google or whatever. And we not only are like forward these messages, we also built the PDFs, so you don't have to look at the crazy formats that normally are in the official inbox. So, and this is built on the same API as the component. So, okay, you get the message, and now what's my data? That's something that's starting to materialize, and that's something you already know from the e-commerce. If you download an app like Uber or almost any app now, it will ask you about permissions. So the idea here is to be able to get permissions for a third-party application. So imagine you want to start a new company. So you go to a website that's a not official website, it's maybe your product, and you just want permissions to do that in the name of the customer. So your app asks, I want to register you for the taxes, I need to see your name, I want to be able to send that to the organization register, I need to do some checks, and you click proceed. The third party, so your product, gets the token and is able to do this in the name of the customer. So that's the idea. So what we need to make this is open the APIs in a special form, so you can work on behalf of another person, and that's already happening. Oh, again, Slovensko SK has this API, so we just need to open up all the other APIs, so we will be able to do this. And a pilot of this should be available starting next year. And this would be like on the official Slovensko SK website. There's a project running to make this available. So I'm a bit skeptical that they are gonna make this deadline, but it's already happening. Okay, and how that fits into our plan in Slovensko Digital. We started the project Návody Digital. Has someone heard about it? Okay, nice. And it's, for those of you that aren't familiar, it's a project that's kind of parallel version of what you see at Slovensko SK. The difference is that you can use this on mobile. And it's much more intuitive, because if you look at the live events or customer journeys or something like that, we have all the steps necessary, like here. You know what you need to do, and here you have like a checkboxes. You can check to make sure you all you have ready for this step to proceed. So, and we are working on this with volunteers. Like anybody can participate. You don't even have to be an IT guy, because we need a lot of persons that are checking the content. We have lawyers that are checking the content, so we don't bullshit people. And so this is how it looks. Now we are starting to build applications, so you can actually from this site do the actual action. So you don't have to go to Slovensko.sk and fill out these weird forms and applications. And if you were listening correctly, that's obvious, because we are building around the APIs around Slovensko.sk. So if everything goes fine, we should be able to log in via Slovensko.sk, and everything else will be done from here. And again, this is open source, so you can start like after my presentation if you want to. Okay, so I'm going to finalize this, and we can start with questions. We're always looking for volunteers that will help us. Again, this is not only scoped to this project. We have all sorts of projects. If you like reading like 50 pages policy papers, we've got you covered. So join us at Slack Slovensko Digital or our forum at Platforma Slovensko Digital. And if you go to our website, slovensko.digital, you can find the various things you can do for us. And thank you.
So, some questions?
So now you have described a really nice story, but that actually it was pretty nice. Slovensko.sk had APIs that Slovensko Digital could use, but actually, were there any problems on the journey? Something that at first they tell you, okay, maybe it was available, but they told you that no, you cannot use that, or something like that? So were there actually any problems on the journey?
Oh man, okay. So there was no journey without like major problems. So, and the first time we started integrating example Slovensko.sk, it took us about half a year to be able to connect to the APIs. But that was mostly because the processes on the other side are so bureaucratic that they just take too long. Example, if you want to connect to Slovensko.sk, compared to e-commerce, if you go to GitHub and want to use the API, you just click, okay, I want to an API, and it's done. Slovensko.sk, you have to like get access to about 3 service or two sites. Then you have to send a formal email that you are starting the integration. Then you have to register the keys, and that is again formally via email. Then you have to fill out like what are you going to do with the APIs. And it takes about 3 weeks for them to review and then send you back like, okay, you can do this, you can do this, make the correction, then send us again the full paper. And then we'll again like check that. So it's not that the APIs are so bad, but the bureaucratic process is that's scary. And then when you look at the APIs, there is a huge amount of documentation, like 300 pages, and they somehow assume that you've read all of that. So it's crazy. It's crazy. So now I have good friends at the integration party, Slovensko SK. So every time I need something quick, I just call them because it's the effective way to do things. And also, it's not very clear, or when we started integrating, it was not very clear which APIs are available to companies and which are to the public bodies, and that was very confusing for us. So you just can't access some of the APIs. Okay.
Okay, some other questions?
You can ask in Slovak, I will translate that if you are scared.
Yeah, so my question is, have you considered that when you're doing APIs over APIs, that you are taking the responsibility for security of those APIs, and how do you deal with that?
Okay, yes. Fair question. The APIs we are building, the first thing is that we use them ourselves. So we make pretty sure that security is okay, and we try to not reinvent the wheel, at least at the security side. So no funny lips there. So okay, so this is the, and so we use that internally, and again, when you are going to use this component should be behind a firewall, or it's mostly an internal component. So the attack vectors are very limited. And we kind of throw the responsibility for that on the end service provider. So, anyone?
Next question. Hello, my name is Roman. The question is, am I right? It's like to complement the previous one. Do you just pass through the data which has been submitted through your website to the government APIs, and your job is done? I mean, you don't store any data within your company?
Okay. Well, that depends on the use case. For the GovBook use case, we need to store the data, so we store the data for a limited time. For other use cases, you don't need to do that. And the problem with these APIs, the official APIs, is that they are pretty low level. So you sometimes have to combine like 2 or 3 of them to make the end user API call useful. So it's not like it's a proxy. It's more like adding value, so you don't have to care about the complexity underneath.
Mm-hmm. All right, and I have second question. How do you do monetization? What do you earn money on?
Okay. So we mostly give this for free. It's open source. You can do that. You can use that. We provide this. We use that internally for our products. So GovBox is a paid service. There is a freemium layer, but if you use that actively, you are going to pay. So it's a normal product. And well, we need to have money to be able to fund Slovensko Digital, and every euro goes to Slovensko Digital. So we actually use these products to fund ourselves, and that's not so common in the NGO world. So yeah, it's tricky. And what was the second part? Sorry. Okay. And the second part is that we actually host and provide these services as a service. So you can download that and use that internally if you want to, but we also provide like in the cloud our version, so you don't have to support that and maintenance and so on. So that's the model here.
Are the government agencies of Slovakia obliged to provide free access to certain sets of open data? And are there any plans in your company to go outside of Slovakia and do the same for, I don't know, Czech Republic, Austria, or some other nearby countries?
No. I know companies that do this in Czech Republic, so there is already a competition happening there. There are some companies that do this in Slovakia, but well, we mostly only crawl data that our clients need or we need internally?
Next questions.
So I heard a question regarding actually the open data. So actually, how is the situation in Slovakia? So do you think like there's enough of open data provided by the government, or do you see there's some reservation and probably like this could be opened, but it's not? So like practical examples of what should be done better.
Yeah, okay. So in the past, the open data was worked like this. Every department was asked to publish some data. So the top departments made the easiest thing possible. They just picked the easiest data that could be published and they published that. And that's not going to be the most valuable data. So what changed was that years ago, we proposed a list of priority data that should be published. And that got very tricky because some of them got published, but if you, for example, wanted data from the cadastry, no way. And we are fighting this fight for years now. So actually the valuable data are very slow to publish. And I know the reasons from the other side, and mostly they are valid because they're afraid of corrupt data and missing data and so on, and everybody will see that the registry is full of garbage. But that's, if anybody was working on a real-world project, that's life. It's going to be full of garbage.
Okay, are there some other questions?
There is a question.
Yeah.
Hi. Suppose that, I don't know, I have a company that needs some data from government. Can we go to you and ask you to be kind of, proxy to the data?
Yeah, you can ask, and if we see that there is a, not an individual, but it's actually a good idea, we will probably push it. But the first step is just to go and try yourself. You can contact the office immediately, but they will be, I would say, at first step, they will be reluctant. But the more people or the more companies want that, there is better chance to get the APIs. But example, what we do now, we have like 3 or 4 major companies in Slovakia that are doing invoicing and services like Cross, Pohoda, and so on. So like the big ones. They own about 70% of the market of invoicing, and they built in Slovensko Digital as cluster. And they are actually, through us, communicating with the Ministry of Finance and the Finančná správa, so the finance agency, and they are proposing how to do electronic invoices and so on and so on. So if you have it's a really good idea, or the publishing is not so hard, or you have a great cluster of companies and they are valid, like the government doesn't want to do a hugely expensive publishing for one company. So if there is a major part of the market saying, we need this, it's going to happen probably.
Thank you.
Okay, someone else?
So you mentioned that you have some priority list for open data. Does the government have some list like that?
Yeah.
Do they track it? Do they have it in a strategy?
Okay, so this list, the priority list, that was actually made by an official office. So this was something we proposed, and it's an official list from an office. So it was not only provided by us. So we provided some data sets, so we want this, but our other proposed others. But yeah, it basically ended up with the list, and we don't see much movement around the actual publishing now.
So this effort that you just described, is it also going on with ECASA thing somehow?
Yes, yes. The cluster I mentioned, they are very active, and they are in some discussions with Finančná správa. So I'm not quite familiar with the domain because my colleague is doing that, but for sure we are doing that.
So it's near future, right?
Yeah, so I don't know what's the status there is on actually opening up the APIs on the virtual CASA. So I don't know, but I can ask and let you know. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have another question, please. So you are combining multiple APIs from government and enriching them and adding a value. Are you considering that when you are combining multiple APIs and providing these APIs really easy to implement and really easy to use, did you consider that maybe if you combine some APIs, you can leak some personal information and personal data? Because when you're, for example, crawling unstructured data documents that are manually scrapped and anonymized, people make mistakes, and you can actually extract the personal information from this.
Yeah, okay. We generally don't crawl or publish data that shouldn't be published. I know about this problem from the Central Registry of Contracts. I've seen that on a past project, but we actually don't crawl this data because we don't have any usage for that. But yeah, I'm familiar with this. And what we normally crawl and what is personal data are the official registries, like the company register, and you have personal data there. But this is a special case of personal data because it was already published. So you can kind of do that, but it's tricky. It's very tricky.
Okay, we have time like for 2 last questions.
So I want to ask, what's actually the field of e-government at Slovakia? So we know it's e-Slovensko, it's probably also it's also probably the registry website. But so what's the field? What are the available websites and sources?
Okay, so that's hard to tell because I think there is a regulation that you have to register your data that you opened on the data.gov, at least as a link, but that's for sure not the case here. So I'm not sure, but I don't think there is a central list for all the open data there, or even APIs. But there is a project coming, hopefully in 2022, that's going to list all the APIs from the government. And there is going to be a new open data, probably a new open data portal. But again, this is going to be the platform, not the actual data. So it's on the agencies and the offices to publish at least some link there. So a bit skeptical about final list of. But if you want some specific data, it's always easier to start from what you need than from give me a list and I will come up with what I want to do.
Okay, last question.
Hi. What about Bratislava now? They are providing more data, should at least provide more data as Matúš Valo is now in charge. So they are proposing, but what's the reality if you are doing something with data of Bratislava? Because I know there is some movement into this.
Yeah, so actually the movement, like not on the central government body, but from the cities and smaller cities, it's more active at the lower end, but these are very limited data. most of the time because the size of the city is too small to be actually useful. Actually, Prešov is a leader of open data in Slovakia. They are doing very nice thing with maps and so on. And I think last week, Bratislava actually made a portal about open data. I haven't really digged into that, but looks like there is a couple, maybe 100 data sets. So compared to what's available at the central level, that's huge. So should be useful.
Okay, so we ran out of time for the questions. So I would like to thank to Mr. Jano Suchal.
Thank you.